under the direction of Mr. Eric Samson, El Dorado 2.
Thank you very much. That was a tune entitled Lose the Shoes. We heard from Ramos Georgie on the alto saxophone. We heard from Maggie Pang on the trombone. Juliet Larson on the very saxophone. We heard from Felicity Mesa on the piano. Back there now. Kenny Osashevsky on the bass. Nancy Maverick on the drums. Well, thanks for coming out tonight and supporting live music as we get ready to head up north on Thursday to the Folsom for the California Jazz Championships. Thanks to Brad Davis for hosting tonight and having us out here. We've done this back in the pack, and it's nice to kind of get different venues so we prepare for this weekend. But anyways, we're going to move right along to a classic tune entitled Around Midnight. We're going to hear from Ramos Georgie again on the alto saxophone, and we're going to also hear from Timothy Yoon back there on the trumpet. This is Around Midnight. Thank you very much. Some nice reverb action on there. All right, well, we're going to slow things down just a little bit and play this beautiful arrangement entitled Windy. And we're going to feature Timothy Yoon on the flugelhorn. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Hey, give it up for Timothy Yoon. And this tune is entitled Windy. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, when you transition, it's just nice and go someday.
first time performing that tune for the audience, so we're excited to put that out there. All right, well, we have one more song for you guys, and hopefully you guys stick around so you hear the rest of the bands. We're very proud of our groups and representing our district, our school district at this festival. There's going to be schools from all over California and some bands from Washington, so that'll be fun to see how we stack up against them. But we're really excited to head up there with our bands, and so thank you for your support and all that you've done. How many of you guys are going up this weekend? All right, cool. Party at Davis's. All right. But anyways, thanks for coming out. This is El Dorado Jazz 2 again. We're going to finish up with a tune entitled Tri-Bop, and we're going to feature Sophie Zatoka on the alto saxophone, Ryan Gerard on the tenor saxophone. We're going to hear a little bit of Gracie Fox back there on the drums. And it looks like we have just enough time to do this, so thanks, we're right on schedule. Thanks again for coming out. Please stick around for Esperanza Jazz 2. We'll be coming up right after these guys. Once again, my name is Eric Samson. This is El Dorado Jazz 2. Enjoy Tri-Bop.